Okay, it is 4 p.m. and I am Pam Petchke. I am chairing this meeting and I am calling the meeting to order. At today's meeting, we'll be interviewing the final two candidates for the position of Director of Finance and Operations. At this time, I will invite the first candidate, Clayton Connor, to come join us at the table. Just in case. Yeah. So just in case, I'm going to open the meeting with a vote to begin. So can I have a motion to open the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Brian.
Yes.
Pat.
Yes.
Yes. Me, yes. Okay, so we're officially in open session. Welcome, Clayton.
Hello.
Come on in.
See some of you again. Yes, sir.
Nice to see you. So I'm going to begin with introductions for a actually smaller group last time around. But I'm going to just ask everybody to introduce themselves, give your role on the committee as well as any subcommittees that you might be on, and the town that you represent. So
my name is Ryan Krupka. I am the secretary of the school committee. I represent Southwick, and I am on ILT, the wellness committee, and special education liaison.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you again, Patrick Jove. I represent Southwick and I am on the capital committee. I'm on the negotiations and policy committee, as well as the Southwick master plan, which is kind of the reinstitution of the community as a whole. So part of that with other members of the community.
Good to see you.
My name's Ted Locke. I've been on the committee now for 22 years.
Wow.
So
Thank you for your service.
there isn't much to say. I mean, as far as I've been on almost every committee.
Nice
what
to meet
town do you represent?
Oh, Colin.
you. Nice to meet you.
I'm Pam Petchke. I'm the vice chair, acting as chair today. I represent the town of Randall, and I am on the policy subcommittee, the instructional leadership team, the special education subcommittee, and the technology subcommittee.
Good to see you again.
Nice to see you. All right, so we will begin the interview questions now. These set of questions are a little bit different from the last time around, but it'll be the same format in that we each have a question. So we will take turns asking the questions and giving you time to answer. And then at the end, there will be time for you to ask us anything that we may not have covered.
Okay, I will begin. Okay, Mr. Connor, what are your immediate goals and objectives that you anticipate achieving in your first 3 months in the district? And what activities are you considering for your tree plan?
First, excuse me, please call me Clay.
Okay.
I think in the first 3 months, I want to enculturate myself with all three communities and the district culture. I want to get a firm understanding of the financial status of the district. And I want to be able to talk to the staff and find out if there's any operational issues that they have concerns about. And I would like to come up with a plan to address anything that I cover and discuss with the superintendent. Those are the first few things that I want to do. But I think the most important one is learning the culture of the district. And it's certainly inspiring confidence in the staff of the finance department. Because I understand that there's the predecessor, if I'm the one selected for this position, It's been there for 12 years, and that's awesome for continuity. But, you know, if I'm the new guy, I got to make sure that they have confidence that I'm going to be able to lead them and get the job done. And not try to push my own personal agenda. I've got to be very clear in my communication. Because I think I would have a lot to learn from them. I want to approach the position with a certain degree of humbleness. But I do also have to lead. So be very forthright about being accessible and listening and making sure that they understand where I come from and what I can offer in my service to the district.
Well, right, sorry.
That's true.
Did I talk too fast?
No, it's good.
Wasn't fast enough.
Oh, stop.
Oh,
It's your turn.
okay, I know it's my turn.
He's just waiting for us,
Ah,
make sure
okay.
we're done writing.
I could have kept on talking.
No,
We
no,
got
Yeah,
plenty of
that
time.
wait time, right?
Tell us about a serious financial crisis that you've been through and how, I mean, have you been involved, involved in your professional career? And what was it and how were you involved and how did the crisis was resolved?
Well, I won't share the same one I shared in the first interview, which was when I was with Frontier Regional in Union 38. We had to make budget cuts at the school, each school. That meant staff had to leave. But I'll talk about recently in my position at Job Corps. We, during the pandemic, the 2 years of the pandemic, we were underrun in our budget. So people got a little free with their spending. Now we had to make sure that we controlled it and they didn't just buy whatever they wanted, but we used it as an opportunity to buy some things for the programs that were kind of on a wish list. And then the contract year ended and they extended the contract by 2 months, and budget, I had to input the budget for 2 months into the financial management system. And then suddenly we realized people were still spending like we were underrun, and the reality was they had to live within their means again. And now they extended it another month while they're determining who gets the award to run the center. So I had to talk to each manager and department manager and said, look, we have to be careful. And plus, when they planned the budget, DOL didn't account for that there would be 3 pay periods in September. So the personnel lines all suddenly used up 70% of their allotted 2-month budget. So we had to come up with, and there was accrued third-party benefits expenses that were paid out in September. So we had to do some fast thinking. We had to look at the budget top to bottom, and we had to address it in real time. In fact, that's what I've been doing since my last interview here. Because I had to submit the monthly financial report to the Federal Department of Labor and overrun almost all of the personnel lines. And they want answers, like yesterday. So that is the most recent. I wouldn't call it a crisis. It was just, I had no knowledge of what was allotted in the budget until I was given the figures, and then I had to input it into the system. I had to roll up all of the expenses, and I found that we were over personnel lines. So the thing that we have to do now is tighten our belts, be careful, and live within our means. And we have monthly budget meetings with the various department managers and other directors, and we have to have some tough conversations, which just has to happen. They've been living pretty well for 2 years, and now they have to go back to within a budget that we have to live with. I hope that helps you.
Okay.
What are some of the unique challenges you foresee and look forward to when handling all the financial operations of a small rural regional school district?
Well, I know that, and the superintendent will share this, is that there's an enrollment. Last year, there was about $870,000 of reduction in revenue. And I mean, I'm sorry, fixed costs increased by that much. And I would anticipate that it's going to happen again, as the superintendent shared in my last interview. They expect the revenue to go down again. So I think it's the same with all regional school districts. How you have quality education, declining enrollment, increased budgetary resources, which underlines more and more the need for careful stewardship of the budget and having a budget that is realistic and takes into account various factors that are impacting the school district. I understand that right now there is no bargaining unit that's going to be going into negotiations, but that will happen. I think the first one will be in 2024. I'm remembering that correctly, so that's something we have to start planning for. And sometimes I've been on negotiations with the union at Westover Job Corps, and that's always something that you have to do a lot more for. So I anticipate that the next bargaining unit is ready for negotiations. That's going to be a challenge. And the reality is the biggest part of any school district or school budget is personnel. So you have to realize that if you're going to attract and keep quality personnel, you have to understand the various forces that are at play and still produce, as I said earlier, quality education program. One of the things I like about what I've been reading about the district is, and it says it right in your policy, the focus needs to be on quality educational outcomes for students. When we get lost in the budget and we forget that, it's easy to drift. And if you keep the mission, which is quality education programs for all students, then it's easier to justify and explain tough financial decisions. Hope that answered your question.
Pardon my late arrival.
Hi.
Your timing was impeccable,
impeccable.
Erica, because if you turn in your packet of questions to number 4, that's where we are, and that is you. So why don't you begin by introducing yourself to Clay? Tell him what town you represent as well as any subcommittees that you're on, and then you can go ahead and ask question number 4.
Hi, I'm Erica Emmelman. I have been on the board for just over a year now. I sit on the board of directors for LPVEC, which is the Lower Pioneer Valley Education Consortium. I think I said that correctly.
Yes.
I'm also on the Buildings and Grounds Committee and then Special Education Liaison also. So are you ready for your question?
I hope so. It should be.
All right, describe your experience with strategic planning and capital planning, including facilities and technology. And that's a big one right now. So how did you incorporate financial information, budgets and projections into the academic strategic plan?
Well, I think first you have an educational strategic plan, and then you fit the financial plan to achieve that. So that's the first thing. I don't think you start with a financial plan and then fit an educational plan into it. So I know that there is a strategic plan for the district. And I was reviewing it and I was looking at the initiatives that are going on. I think the job of a director of finance and operations is to make sure that the money in the budget is focused and dedicated to achieving those initiatives. So then talking about construction, right now at Westover Job Corps, I've overseen $1.4 million. We just got funded for another big project, construction projects, 841,000 of them to completion, and the rest are in various stages from solicitation development to actively the contract has been awarded and the work is going on, and some are about to be closed out. We did a needs assessment of the district, at Westover. It's a 43-acre campus with 27 buildings, and the newest one was built in 1995. So, and many of them have been empty and have not been able to use, like the old gymnasium, for example, has got mold issues. One of the former dormitories in the old academics building has mold and asbestos issues. So you have to do a needs assessments of all of those types of things and have a vision for, okay, if we ever get funding for new construction, what do we need the most? The safety of the students is the paramount concern, and that it's a safe environment. And with an aging campus with aging buildings that have been neglected, there's a lot of challenges there. So in consultation with my facilities manager and the center director, which is the superintendent, we make priorities. And then once we've identified the priorities, then we try to figure out how does this fit into the overall strategic plan of the district, and then how do you get funding for it, and then how do you manage the projects? And then that means working with the Massachusetts School Boards Association, School Building Authority, and it's a challenge, and running schools that I would imagine the youngest building, I don't know how old it is, but it's kind of picked up from my first interview. The facilities manager has a lot of issues, and it's a big concern. So doing a needs assessment and then building from there, determining priorities, what has to be done, preventative maintenance, new construction, renovation, and then the third part of your question. Sorry, it was.
That's okay. And how did you incorporate the financial information, the budgets and projections into the academic strategic plan or into the basic strategic plan?
Once you identify the priorities, and there's critical needs and there's things that can be done in 3 to 5 years phase, and then there's stuff that has to be done every year. Right. And then you have to plan for unforeseen things like so you've approved getting new carpets for the library, and you find out there's asbestos underneath the old flooring. You have to have plans like that in place, and you have to make sure that the facilities needs and projects are in concert with the strategic plan. In other words, if you're moving to better access to technology, and I remember that's the other part, you have to realize that installing hotspots or access points throughout the buildings, that's going to take a minute. And you can't, with any introduction of new technology comes training for the staff. So they have confidence in the system, and they have to have confidence that it's going to be available when they need it. And then they have to have confidence that when a teachable moment comes up, that they can use the technology in the proper way, right? So my experience, I talked a little bit about this in my first interview, was when I was at Deerfield Elementary School. I wrote the technology plan that was adopted by the district and was replicated because, again, this was back in the early teens, and teachers didn't have a lot of confidence in the system because it was clunky and it wasn't dependable. And we had to increase that. But you don't just buy computers, or you don't just increase broadband if it doesn't fit into an overall strategy of utilizing technology for enhancing instruction, right? We bought every teacher a smart board, but before they even started to turn them on, we started prepping them to shift their instruction to utilize this new tool. So it didn't become just a big electronic whiteboard. And my most recent piece at Job Corps was when we went to distance learning. It's a vocational technical education. You might know a little bit about Job Corps if you worked at Pioneer Valley, but they don't do distance learning. They never did. It's all hands-on vocational education. So that was quite a lift, and we had to increase the bandwidth. So I doubled it. We had to get Chromebooks to every student, the management and control of those. But then we also had to teach the instructors how to use those. And that's all has to happen in the right sequence and have a strategic plan in place before you even open the Chromebook. So that's what I can say to that. I hope that answered your question.
It does. I just wanted to ask you a question with
Sure.
regards, you had brought up the Massachusetts School Building Authority,
Yeah,
and working with them can be tricky.
yes.
There's another piece to that, and I'm wondering how you might work with the public, or this is a regional school system, obviously, so how would you incorporate working with the parents and the town members of things like that, if you were going to be allocating funds to a new renovation project?
Well, I'm going to assume that the new renovation project has a broad base of public support. If it doesn't, then you have to do a lot of groundwork, and that's engaging with stakeholders, certainly under the guidance and in concert with the superintendent, in large meetings, small meetings, and being very clear about what you're trying to do, why it's going to be good for students, and that we have a plan to get there. And that's what you have to communicate and listen to people. Because we all know that, I live in a regional school district. No one likes change. New Englanders, especially Western Massachusetts folks, I was a little skeptical about big spending projects. They want to make sure that it's not some pet project or something. But so that goes back to just making sure you're clear about why is this good for our district and our students? And you need to do that before you even start. You have to have a plan before you even go out and start engaging with stakeholders. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Thank you. So can you give us examples of how you have dealt effectively, and this kind of ties into what you were just saying, with multiple, sometimes competing constituencies? For example, town officials, administrators, teachers, central office personnel.
Well, I would have to say that's a fact of life. I've worked for 2 regional school districts, Mohawk and Frontier. And it's town meetings, board, school committee meetings, finance committee meetings of the towns, listening to constituents, having them call you up or email you, The important thing is all of these various stakeholders, they're the reason we have a school district. And no one voice is more impactful than others. It's the person you're talking to or the group that you're in front of. And you have to stay consistent. You can't change your message just because you're talking to the finance committee of one of the towns with talking to a group of parents. Whatever you're trying to talk to them about, it's got to be the same for both groups. And the messaging has to be thought out and thoughtful. And again, if it's lined up with the strategic plan and you can explain how that is. Strategic plan is approved, so therefore, if you're trying to say, we're doing this because it's in our strategic plan. And this is our timeline, and this is how we're going to implement, and this is how we're going to measure how it's successful. It's just being consistent across all the stakeholders. Don't change your message to just because you're talking to town of Granville or the town of Southwood, town of Poland, or parents from the PTO or the school committee or anything. It's being consistent and making sure, this also goes back to I'm not a loose cannon. I might be the director of finance and operations, but I work under the guidance and the vision of the superintendent and the school committee. So I have to stay within my lane here. And that's very helpful when you have to talk to and you get asked tough questions. I hope that helps you.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
You're up, Brian.
Again, explain what you see as a relationship that should be developed with the school committee and how it differs to that with the superintendent.
Well, I think I've talked a little bit about how I see how the director of finance and operations fits in with the superintendent. I think the relationship with the school committee has to be one of trust and confidence that I'm giving them accurate information, because ultimately they, the superintendent, make top decisions for the district. I have to inspire confidence and transparency. I feel goes a long way. And I have to be accurate, and when they ask for something, I have to have it ready and give it to them, and I have to give it to them form and that has substance, but is useful for them to make decisions.
That way me and Pam understand, because that's not our strong suit.
And that, well, I want to clarify something. I assume people on school committees are smart people dedicated to serving the district, and they have to make tough decisions, and they want information that they can use. If I give you a 45-page report and say, here you go, I'm not doing my job. If I give you an executive summary and I talk about it with each of you, and I give you the facts and charts and data, and then I make myself available for follow-up, then I'm doing the job. Does that make sense?
Those.
Excellent. All right, so I think I have the last question here. Yes. So describe an administrative decision you have made in the past that you would do differently today.
It was when we were rolling out the new teacher evaluation system. And it scared a lot of teachers. And I tried to be forthright, because money was tight. How they performed and tenure decisions and things like that. I think I over-explained a little bit, trying to be like, don't worry when I come into your classroom 4 times in a semester for 10 minutes to do the observations, but I think I over-explained it, and I would do it a little differently, because the experience of rolling it out made me smarter about managing any kind of education change and how to talk to teachers, and just where I could use that in this position is any kind of big change is, like I talked about earlier, make sure the messaging is consistent, make sure that you have a plan and you're forthright about this is what we're gonna do. This is how we're going to know if we're successful. This is the data we're gonna gather. And this is your part of the process too. That's what I would do differently. I felt like the teachers felt like something was being done to them. And that was never our intent, but that's how it felt. And you have to take that into account. It's not, okay, well, our intent was not to alienate this group of stakeholders, say, but if that's how it felt, then that's on me. It doesn't matter if I didn't intend it to be that. Does that make sense?
And were you acting as principal in this role?
I was the
at time?
assistant principal.
Yes.
I've
can-
talked about educational because that
Right,
policy.
so, you said that that was kind of an example of just in general, some things that you learned about how to roll out something that is new. So like if you had like to come away with like some top takeaways from that experience, what I'm hearing from you is don't over explain. What else would be your takeaways from that experience?
Engage the teachers more and listen to them and find out what their anxieties are. I'm not a therapist, please. Understand, you know. And how that translates is listening to stakeholders, as I was talking about.
Sure.
You know, and trying to identify what their anxieties are and have some response that's going to make them feel a little bit better rather than amp up the anxiety.
Mhm.
I'm not saying I freaked any teachers out. I'm saying that, yeah, I just observed that as we were doing it. They're not reacting as we anticipated. They're scared. Because it was a much more robust evaluation system. They had data that they had. And we focused on the data that they had to gather and develop. I think we needed to spend a little bit more time with them about how the whole evaluation system is going to hopefully improve outcomes for students and improve their teaching skills.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me get back to section G. So that concludes the questions that we have created for you. Do you have any questions for us as a committee?
I think that the one question I have is, what do you need from the director of finance and operations? I mean, I think I've picked up some of it, these questions in the first interview, but
I would say probably in the job description, as you read, is really basically what we're looking for. I think we based the job description on the answers we have chosen for tonight, so I think that that's kind of, you know, my feeling as what we're looking for from you.
it covers a lot. That's a 3-page long job description.
I mean,
It
well,
mirrors my
in
position
summary,
at
yeah,
Westover
yeah.
very much. I supervise all the same departments. And, so I'm glad to hear that there isn't something hidden that I missed.
No, I mean, to your point, full transparency, like, you know, what we're asking of you is how the job was explained when you applied, and then through the process of interviewing is how, you know, we're laying it out.
And to hit the ground running. You know, we really do need someone that's going to come into this position and take over for Steve and, you know, continue on with the plans that he has in place, and then maybe even improve upon those already.
Well, can I respond to that?
Please.
And I think I alluded to it earlier in the interview. I don't remember if you were sharing, but they asked, I think, do I call your name?
Oh, yes, it is.
She asked
Yeah, good
about
luck with
what
that
they-
last name.
And I said, I felt one of the big things that I would need to understand in the first 3 months on the job, I would have to learn the culture of the district and get to know the staff, finance staff. But I also said that I would need to get a clear understanding of the financial position of the district, and I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and get that done. So I am ready to hit the ground running, but I don't want to run past the people that
Very good.
work for and with. That's not the kind of leader I am.
Good.
So I want to make that clear. I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and do this. But I don't want to overlook the people that have been doing fine work for the district for many years. And I know that that's important. And I said earlier, I got to inspire confidence. I got to show that I'm competent and know what I'm doing, but I also have a lot to learn from them. And I look forward to that.
Thank you.
There is a tar pit element in this district, in this region.
Can you
You've got
talk
three
about that a
towns.
little bit, or is that?
Yeah. There are 3 towns
Right.
that have 3 different cultures
Mhm.
and 3 different ways of looking at things.
Yes.
And it can get quite a challenge to try to get those 3 towns to walk in the same direction. You follow what I'm saying?
I think that, when you went back to ask what we were looking for, and I think in the time that I've served on this search committee and listening to the different stakeholders, I think that the superintendent is certainly looking for a right-hand man. I think that we as school committee members, to Ted's point, are looking for someone that can explain the budget and the budget priorities to the townspeople when it comes time to procure the votes in all 3 towns, as to why we're doing what we're doing and how it supports the district plan in a way that they fully understand, that they feel is transparent, and that can help build their confidence in us as a financially responsible district. And I think that the other piece of what we're looking for is in our administrators that are, want to feel confident that, when they need something for their budgets that supports their educational initiatives, that, if they need it, that, they can look to you on creative ways to obtaining it.
Yes, and can I speak to that?
Sure.
I think my experience as a building administrator really will be helpful in that. In my developing relationships with the building principals. It's just, I understand, there's compliance, there's, meeting all the laws and being transparent and making the required reports to DESE, but what's really important is to understand why we're doing all that compliance, why it's necessary that we're careful stewards. It's because the building administrators have a whole set of problems that they really need help with, and they look to the superintendent and the business manager, and I think I can really develop good relationships with them and help them. And getting to the point about the 3 towns, I live in a regional school district. I live in the town of Shelburne, which shares a village, which is what I live in, the town of Buckland, and Bucklanders don't really like the fact that a village with the name Shelburne Falls is just an example of the culture. Right? The village is Shelburne Falls. Half is.
You have McCusker's Market.
Right. We have McCusker's and the world famous Bridge of Flowers, which is on the Buckland side, but it ends on the Shelburne side. And that's how the locals talk about it. What side do you live on? Well, I live on the Shelburne side. Oh, yeah. But I understand that there's dynamics, and they do all they want to know that their town and their kids are being served by the school district, and that's why they're in the school district. So that's the starting point of all conversations that I would have, but I understand it. And it was the same in Frontier Regional. It's also a New England thing, so I want to learn that when I'm serving from Southwick, Tolan, Greenville, but I want to get to know the towns. I mean, if I'm the person selected for this position, I plan to relocate here, so the people that live in the towns give me their best sales pitch. You know a good real estate agent?
It's really up in the middle of nowhere. Ted
Holland
loves
is,
it, but it's beautiful.
Holland is
But-
like Coleraine. Actually, it's more like
Yeah.
Heath or
I
Holland
was
or
the
Row
principal
or.
of Coleraine, elementary
I'm from
school.
Greenfield, so that's,
Yeah.
that's my.
Get a vehicle with like good four-wheel drive.
We got, we
I know that
got
area
those.
better
Yeah.
than most.
Big brake pads.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's for going down the hill, right?
All the towns are beautiful on that
They are.
way.
Yeah.
I took the back way here today, just to see what it was like, and it was just so beautiful, peak foliage.
When you say back way, how?
One,
One-
one,
route
112
number?
south
So,
to, through, Goshen and Westfield, and, just absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, you missed Holland, you missed.
I know.
he's gonna go 57 on the way back. He's gonna pick up 8. He's gonna pick up 116 through Ashfield, and he's gonna end up. I know how to get him.
Well, I live in a hill, what's called a hill town.
Right.
and
That's,
I live in the village of Shelburne Falls, but my wife's family has had a farm in Charlemont for 80, 90 years. So we know boonies. We have boonies there too.
those are the real hill towns.
Yeah. So,
Clay, can I ask you something? You made reference to something a few minutes ago, you know, when we were talking about relationship with the administrators. You
Yeah.
know, and you made reference to your background being an administrator, and I see that in your resume, you know, vice principal, principal, all that sort of thing. Can I ask what has made you make that jump in toward a different kind of a role, you know, the business manager role, rather than principal or even a superintendent or assistant
Well,
superintendent?
way back when I was still in Arizona, I was a school business official for charter schools, and it was about the charter schools in Arizona were different. They still are different. And I was about making sure that if you're giving public money to this entity, and it could be for-profit entities in Arizona to run charter schools, that they were going to play by the rules and not bend them. And I felt that was a really good thing to add to my skill set. And I found in working in the regional school districts, and every year we had to go through the budget process and everything, I found I need to know more about business operations, especially since I'm going, you know, getting my superintendent, assistant superintendent's license in Massachusetts. I had one in Arizona. So it was more about understanding in a more broader sense the fiscal management of a regional school district. I felt that was important to learn, and then as it ended up, it fit perfectly into the job at Westover. That they needed somebody that understood education and academic programs, but how to run budgets. And when I took that job at Westover, there was new terminology, but I had something to hang it on and to, they call it obligated funds. We called it encumbered funds.
Right.
How the chart of accounts is set up. You know, I was able to do a crosswalk easily because of what I knew. So it just, as I've always tried to learn new skills in any position I've been in, and what I learned when you work for a regional school district is you need to have a firm understanding of the budget process and fiscal management, because you just have to. So that's how I morphed into being in business management.
Thank you.
And I'd like to follow that up is like, I would love to bring my skills and what I know here.
Well, we want to thank you very much for coming in for a second time around.
My pleasure.
You should know that we, as a committee, have one more interview
Mhm.
to do. But then we do plan to make our decision on who we would like to offer the position to this evening. We will be in touch with you regardless. But that's where we stand as of right now.
Well, I would like to say thank you again for the opportunity. I feel honored that as a finalist, and well, I hope I'm the one.
Let's be honest.
But I really do appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and to hopefully demonstrate how I can serve. Because that's how I would view the position service. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to
Thank
meet
you
you.
very, very much.
Safe travels.
Yes.
I'm not taking the back way now.
Yeah.
It's dark out.
You wouldn't be able to see the beautiful leaves anyway.
That is true.
I'm afraid of any deer.
I know, I was having to have to leave executive right now.
Yeah, we have 5 telephone lights.
I mean, I don't really like them.
So
Have
folks,
fun.
Good luck.
we have a few minutes
Let 'em
before
free up
the
your
next.
Bring
candidate
pictures
comes
tomorrow.
in.
Bring pictures with your phone. Yeah, because I want to see.
So in the time that we have before the next candidate comes in, I'd like not to talk about the candidates until we're done. But at the end of your packet, and this is new from the last time around, at the end of your packet, we do have some reference questions that were sent out that we recently received. So if you hadn't had the chance to read those yet, I would direct you to the end of that packet so that you can kind of take a look at some of the reference responses.
Yeah, I did read the entire packet that Amy sent, so I'm familiar with both.
Awesome. You getting your thoughts?
B++.
Of the teacher.
So we're waiting till the end. If we have any other questions, we wait until the end and then ask them. And it's okay to ask them to the group.
Because they have spent. We can stray from our 7 questions we got.
So I wasn't.
Since we already did
100%.
that.
You have to keep it structured. You have
Right.
to ask
The
each
same
candidate
thing.
the same questions, however,
However you
you can
are
have
allowed to ask
dialogue like we did.
follow-up questions.
I should have asked that before I just did it.
So
Well,
that,
I was like.
No, you were fine.
I mean, I was looking at Pam going, she's supposed to do that well. I don't know. Here we go.
so like at the end,
Yeah.
when I asked that question that was not on the script, I asked it because it was a follow-up to something he had just alluded to.
Yeah.
So we do need to stay on script, but I think
Yep.
that when it comes to the end, if there are follow-up questions we want to ask, I think that's acceptable
Okay. And then also we wait to discuss until
after the second
after
candidate.
one is the second one is done. And I do apologize for being late by my world. I am never late for anything, and woof, today got me surprised. Good surprise.
Okay, sure. You're like, what? Oh,
Did
crap.
you hear him give me the little dig though? He's like, and I don't remember if you were here when I said this.
It's like, oh, let me text her. Oh.
Good luck.
She doesn't really, need it, it's just fine. Baby cooperates, he can be on.
The technology must have changed so much.
10 fingers, 10 toes, the important part.
My last one, I got a bunch of 3D, because I have ultrasounds every week, and the they knew that I had kids at home, so they would take 3D service show the kids, but even they were like, I see a nose, okay, great.
Yeah, see, like, back when I did, there wasn't
okay,
the
cool.
3D.
Wicked cool.
I don't remember.
Nah,
I did with
kids
my
are too old for
10-year-old, I got a 3D one. And then did with my other ones, because, you know.
Right, exactly, especially preferential treatment.
I have all their regular parts, but then it's fun to just see. You can like base it.
You see their face? Really? You see what they look like through that?
You said it was a level 3, right? That's like.
It's
like
pretty,
it's
yeah,
pretty,
yeah.
You can see like direct, you can see the whole.
Really?
Oh,
Honestly?
I have many.
Wow.
My baby's turned 15
Tomorrow, that's exciting.
Yeah, Julie's on home.
I always say,
Oh, yeah.
I got one coming up.
Yeah.
I always say it's not about the kids, because 15 years ago you were getting those babies, so.
Oh, that first one is definitely nothing about them at all, about you.
For sure.
Well,
It's really about. the
You got through the first year of having twins. right?
Yeah, good for
God
you.
bless you.
I'm telling you, after they're potty trained, it's easier to have twins. It's those first couple of years until they're potty trained. And then after that, it's like,
They have a buddy.
they have a buddy, a
Yeah.
constant buddy to go through
That's what
life
my
with.
mom said, because like she watches my kids and she was so nervous about taking 2 of them, they're 2.5 years apart. I'm like, Mom, you're twins.
Right?
And she's like, yeah, but you guys did everything together.
Together, yeah. And like I have friends that have twins and then had a singleton, and they were like, oh, the singleton is so much harder than the twins were. Just because the twins entertain themselves.
Yeah, or each other,
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do, they really do.
right?
And like they were so cute this year starting school. They ended up having all of their same classes together. And I was like, so are you cool with that? They're like, oh, we love it.
So me and my brother loved it too.
Like the Platonic too, they are the best. They are exactly the same. I'm not sure if you know who they are, but they're,
Do they look different?
no, they're
Are they
identical.
Can you tell them apart?
One works at Big Y, I think it's Matt.
What grade are they in?
They graduated last year,
Last year, yeah,
and they are so polite. They are
I
exactly
know,
the same.
yeah, I know.
They are super sweet.
yeah.
Because I do they hate it.
They do
Look about
everything
it.
together, every sporting event, like they were our biggest fans of hockey.
Aw. Yeah, I even got my brother's name. Like, really? All the time. We had one gym teacher that got us wrong all the time. For different genders. I don't understand.
Just
What's
the
your brother's
next
name?
one?
TJ.
Yeah, but you're Ryan.
I know,
It's-
but still,
Yeah.
I don't care.
Deborah.
We can go ahead and start. Let's go.
TJ and Ryan. I mean.
Well, his real name is Terrence, or is
But you're still Ryan.
Terrence. He goes by Justin. I say
Oh, yeah,
TJ.
you
he's
told
like,
me that.
yeah. That's TJ too.
All right, guys, do you want to start with the next one?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, let me get my script here. Because good things don't happen when I start.
Can we start on?
I believe that we can, I can start, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's right there.
So at this time,
He's here.
I will invite our second candidate, Peter Roach, to join us at the table.
Come on in, Pete. You're welcome.
Welcome.
Hi there.
Hello.
See.
That's your seat.
That's right.
You can stand if you want.
No, I'm-
Well, welcome back.
well, thank you.
Some of us are familiar faces to you,
Definitely.
others are new.
Okay.
So we have a few more members of the school committee here. And I'd like to start by just going around and doing
That
introductions.
sounds fine.
We'll tell you who we are, the town that we represent, as well as our role on various subcommittees.
Okay.
First, my name is Ryan Krupka. I'm the secretary of the school committee. I am on instructional leadership team, the wellness committee as special education liaison, and I represent South.
Very good.
Nice to see you again,
Nice to see
Patrick
you.
Job. I represent Southwick. I am on negotiations, policies, capital, and the Southwick master plan, which is kind of the
Some of the busy again.
reenactment of a, yeah. Like everything else. It's kind of the rewritten Bible of the town, so, 40-year plan.
I'm Ted Locke. And I'm the representative from
The
Tottenham,
junior guy.
which is the smallest town in the district. And I'm on negotiations, finance, buildings and grounds, you name it, I've been there.
Okay.
I've been on the school committee now for 22 years,
Oh my God, okay.
because the town won't let me loose.
The first brick has his name on it.
So I'm Pam Petchke, I'm the vice chair of the school committee. I represent the town of Granville, so we're just a teeny tiny bit larger than town, but not that much. I serve on the policy subcommittee, the instructional leadership team liaison, the special education liaison, and the technology liaison.
Okay, thank you.
Last but not least, I can assure you. My name is Erica Emmelman, and I have been on the board for Southwick. I live in Southwick, obviously, and a little over a year now.
Okay,
And I am on the board of directors for LP VEC, which is Lower Pioneer Valley Education Consortium.
okay,
And I also am on buildings and grounds and serve as a special education liaison for the board.
okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
So as of the last time around, we have a series of questions
Okay,
to ask you, and each of us will take a question. And then when you are done, if you have any questions for the committee,
Okay.
we will give you the opportunity to ask as
Alright.
well.
sounds good.
I'm gonna go first. Do you prefer Peter or Pete?
Good to be elected.
Okay,
All right.
so I will start. So what are your immediate goals and objectives that you anticipate achieving in your first 3 months in the district? And what activities are you considering for your entry plan?
Okay, first 3 months, you can make many mistakes as school business manager. The absolute critical thing is, two critical things. One is to successfully control this year's budget. So I learned everything I could about it, asked as many questions, talked to many people about it. And the other thing is to effectively start the watch of next year's budget, which I typically start about this time of year. It's a very long process with me. I get involved with a lot of different people to discuss a lot of things. I would then get out there to all the schools, get to know all the players, what the issues are, what the problems are, get to know my staff, and proceed like that. In the central office, I get to know, everybody, et cetera. A big issue I have is, I know you have a payroll person. I bring my parents with me, I guess. I think it's absolutely critical that we have a backup person for payroll. She has appendicitis or something, something's got to be done. You can hold off accounts payable, et cetera, if you have to. You cannot hold off payroll. It's got to go out and it's got to be accurate every 2 weeks. So I'd either be myself or someone else to make sure that that's something we can proceed on. I get to get out there and I get to know the service people, what their issues are, maybe give them some ideas about how to improve their menu, make sure they're taking advantage of everything in terms of what's available, in terms of kids that are getting free and reduced and commodities that are available from the government. I make sure I get a handle on special ed, see what the programs out there, and what are people doing there, and making sure that anything IDEA and any funding that's available is coming in. And I take a real hard look at SPED, because I've been places also that SPED, a good way to get a budget out of control real fast is to have several out of district tuitions you don't expect. So I make sure we get a handle on those, maybe look at more cost-effective alternatives and this type of thing. And once again, I get out there to the schools, I get to know people, get a handle on the budget, and all the other areas under my control, I get a handle on.
Okay. Tell me about a serious financial crisis that you had been involved with during your profession. And what was it, and how were you involved, and how did the crisis?
Okay, the big one was my first job was in Peabody, Massachusetts. I got halfway through my first year that pulverized with unanticipated out of district special ed tuitions. And there are various bad ones. By far, the worst one is a private placement. Very, very expensive. And I got hit with a bunch of those in the middle of the year that I didn't anticipate, and there was a significant budget problem. I handled it several different ways. I talked to the SPED administrators. Is there something more cost effective out there we can do to eliminate these? Go through the collaborative, bring a problem back in-house and this type of thing. I was successful in one respect. One of the programs that was doing out there, I managed to bring it back in-house, hired a teacher and tuitioned in kids that had that special needs problem. Very much much more cost effective, this type of thing. And so, and even at that, I had to get a supplemental appropriation from the city, which I didn't want to do, but that was probably the biggest financial problem I've had since I started this job, and was pretty much successful, but once again, I was in a position, the city council was able to help me out. I did manage to bring kids in house that were outside, and with the help of the special ed people, find more cost effective solutions. Just to be candid, I find special ed people, sometimes they send out at the drop of a hat, kids that really don't fully require that level of service outside the district. So I did work with them to discuss what we could do in-house, to provide additional services, get them back in-house much more cost effectively.
Okay.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
No, that was,
I also talk very fast. I usually
no.
start these things by mentioning that.
I listen fast. Slowing down a little bit, but
My turn. What are some of the unique challenges you foresee and look forward to when handling all the financial operations of a small rural regional school district?
Okay, once again, I would envision getting a handle on the current year's budget. And I find that there are two, dealing with administrators that are responsible for budgets, there are two different types of people. There are people that came out through education that really aren't at all comfortable with financial matters. And there are people that are somewhat savvy. So depending on who I'm dealing with, the amount of hand-holding I would give them. I would run them reports every 2 weeks, go over issues and problems that I see, and give them ideas about how we can get things under control, to do a better job, this type of thing. Well, maybe you want to repeat the question, I'm not sure.
Maybe want me to do it again?
Yeah.
What are some of the unique challenges you foresee and look forward to when handling all the financial operations of a small rural regional school
Okay.
district?
And once again, controlling the budget is absolutely critical. Getting people in sync, giving them the support they need to do those type of things. Also make sure we're out there getting all the grants we should be getting. Title I, Title II, IDEA, and make sure we're expending those effectively. I do not want to give any money back to the federal government. You don't get any awards for doing that. But make sure as legally as we can to use those funds for other available things. Talk to the state, make sure Chapter 70 is coming in like it should, and that there are no issues, problems. We have to understand that. But I think once again, the big thing is control. Talk to the other administrators on a regular basis. Keep the superintendent advised of issues and problems where you are, and proceed along that way.
I'm up next.
Okay.
Describe your experience with strategic planning and capital planning, including facilities and technology. How did you incorporate financial information / budgets and projections into the academic strategic plan?
Okay, working with the budgets, you see what's out there in terms of what's available for grants and this type of thing, so what you're going to incorporate in there. You talk to all the teachers and understand what's required technologically to have them proceed. And ideally, every child should have a computer. I don't know, as in most districts I've been in, I don't know what the deal is here. But to budget, to look at technology and where it's going, and to get a handle for what you need at various grade levels to provide them with the tools they need to effectively use technology. You also personally have to keep an eye on technology, because the costs, the prices are going down, and make sure you're taking advantage of everything that's out there that's less cost effective. Look at state grants and this type of thing to understand what's available in terms of supporting technology. The other grants, keep an eye on those two about what might be out there. But and it's an ongoing process. I would do it 5 years out, though. As you get out farther, it's not as easy to keep track of about what's going to be needed, what's required for technology, what a kid's going to need, and this type of thing. you can have them work with the system.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, could you give us examples of how you have dealt effectively with multiple, sometimes competing constituencies? For example, town officials, administrators, teachers, central office personnel.
Okay, I tend to find, I find, I like impersonal relationships. I'll get out there and get to know everybody personally. And I don't like, memos or formal things like that. I'll get out and talk to people. I don't like emails. To get out and talk to people and understand what the issues are and the problems. I always develop a good working relationship with town officials, et cetera, and this type of thing. Know where they're coming from and what they expect from me and what I expect from them and what their issues and this type of thing. In terms of dealing with this other selectmen, you want to know?
Oh, well, any, a
Everybody.
situation in which you've dealt with competing constituencies.
Okay, I try talking to people informally, get a feeling for where their heads are at, and to build consensus. My boss is the superintendent. I want to make sure I'm following what she envisions as the goals and carry that forward and this type of thing. Incorporate any wishes that the selectmen have in terms of what they want to do and this type of thing. And likewise, talking to the other administrators about what their absolute needs are, critical requirements and this type of thing. The thing that talking to other ministers, facilities wise, what goes to the top of my list is anything safety related. Asbestos, lead paint, et cetera, that goes to the top of my list. So I would have an informal relationship with all the people involved with decision making, try to understand what their feelings are. Are there certain issues or problems we can address over several years? Or do we have to do everything this year? And once again, safety is the first type of thing. And if we get to a point where there's an irreconcilable difference, I'll just explain, hey, this is my position. This is what I'm recommending. I hope you'll support me. And if you have a requirement, maybe next year, the year after that, we can incorporate it, but I just don't see it happening this year. I'm not sure I hit everything you, did I?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Question 6.
We are.
All right, explain what you see as the relationship that should be developed with the school committee and how it differs to that of the superintendent.
Okay. I work for the superintendent. Among my big jobs is to keep her out of trouble. To make sure she doesn't get sideswiped, that she has any problems that are out there that she's aware of, and I'll keep her advised. And to make sure she doesn't have to worry about things that I'm responsible for. She should know that Peter's in charge of the budget, facilities, food service, et cetera, and that those are in good shape. And if there's an issue or problem with them, he'll let me know, one, what the problem is, and two, come up with a recommended solution type of thing. So that to keep the superintendent out of trouble and freed up to do other superintendent things without worrying about, my bailiwick, she knows it's all right. School committees, I take my lead from the superintendent. I prefer to have a very personal relationship with the school committees. That if they hear something or have a problem or an issue, that they're comfortable calling me to discuss it. And if I don't know the answer, I will find it for them. And to have that type of, rapport as I hear things in the community, or if they have a priority in the budget, have me take a look at, can we do this type of thing? There's a third grade math curriculum updatable in terms of this year or next year type of thing. I've worked in other systems where the superintendent preferred to be the funnel, but she liked to be the one that talked to the school committee. I can live with that. I prefer to be able to help them talk to the school committee itself, but I've worked for superintendents where they very much felt it's important that they were very much on top of everything, and as opposed to me going directly to people, they wanted to be a funnel. But I'd rather have a personal relationship with you about your issues and concerns and develop that type of relationship.
All right, so I have the last question here.
Okay.
Describe an administrative decision you have made in the past that you would do differently today.
Administrative decision. There have been several. Well, one, when I was up in Peabody, I very uncost effective. I was getting very good quotes for third-party bus services. Have another company handle the buses and this type of thing. And it would actually be much more cost effective and everybody would be better off type of thing. But I made the decision, given various pressures I was under from unions and other people in town, to keep the group in-house. And it did not work out particularly well. They had some of the damnedest problems in that group you wouldn't believe. Talking drugs and drinking and, you know, all kinds of things that I had to deal with that. It would have been much cleaner and more effective and more efficient if I had subcontracted out buses at that point, but I kept them in-house. See some smiles.
We have subcontracted out, but I certainly
You won't have that problem. We
understand
already
the
did it.
political pressure of
Yeah.
that decision, yes.
Yeah, we went through that. It's turned out very well.
It was,
There's some good companies out there to do business with, you know. But the funny thing, when you went out to bid, I bet you only got one bid. Did you get two?
Three.
I think we had
Did you? Because
three.
typically bus companies have things divvied up. They don't bid against each other. They,
Well,
everybody kind of sets their,
what we had working for us is our relationship with the Lower Pioneer Valley Educational Collaborative.
Yeah.
Among their many responsibilities, they provide bus service for the member districts. So we're
really?
one of seven.
all the buses are just special, like,
All the buses.
all the buses, interesting, okay.
So, you know, we had a few options to go with, but that one was the one that made the most sense for
Okay.
us because we are one of seven members of that collaborative.
Okay.
So it's turned out to be a good partnership. And the person who, you know, served as our director of transportation here, is now working for that organization, and works, you know, with our school district.
And being a small school district, you get a cost, you know, and trying to run a bus service on top of everything, that's it just,
I couldn't agree with you.
it
Yeah,
just,
thank you.
it just teaches you a lot.
In a small district, you have to wear a lot of hats.
I understand that.
Not geographically.
I mean, you spread out, they're just, you know.
Yeah.
3 towns. a lot of it's-
Well, that concludes our questions for you. Do you have any questions for us now that you've kind of had some time to mull over since your last interview?
No, as I said last time, I don't get the impression from what you said that on day one, there's any elephant in the room out there I've got to tackle, no big issues with unions or facilities or anything of that nature. If I read that wrong, please tell me. Your facilities are all in reasonably good shape. So I wouldn't have to proceed to do anything right there. Usually the things that come up and hit you are, you know, roofs and oil burners, but that's not the issue. And I've had some terrible issues, not bad issues with, with unions that were coming up, and I gather there's no big issue on the horizon there either, but I know
We're in negotiations.
yeah,
For next teacher's contract. We definitely, although our buildings are in good shape, some of our technology and networking stuff can
Okay.
use some revisions. We have a new technology director.
okay,
So I think that technology upgrades
okay,
might be kind of the next big project. And there are also some outside buildings and grounds projects
that was mentioned.
that, you know, that we're looking into. But you're right, nothing glaring.
Okay,
More or less ongoing. Yes.
okay.
Coming down the.
Preventative maintenance every
Yeah.
year.
I-
A little bit of capital improvement here and there.
Okay. No, you have any, you didn't really know anything about my background, of things I've done in the past, you're curious about it, or?
I mean, we have your resume,
Okay.
Yeah.
we have references, we've kind of, you know, done some homework on you.
Okay, all righty, and,
You can certainly speak if you want to sell yourself, you know.
no, I just, as I probably said last time, I find the things I've read, having changed jobs several times. I find 2 things really help me. One is I started out in the private industry, which I acquired a certain discipline that some people in education don't have. And I think, yeah, that can be a good approach to things. I find that the diversity of my education background, with the the liberal arts, the business, the accounting, school administration, my diversity of academic. It helps me, and to begin with all that, having been in various different districts, you pick up something every place and you bring that to the job too, so. I find that's a big advantage that other people may not bring to the job.
Thank you.
I noticed that you have, worked in many districts, larger districts than ours. And in Massachusetts, it's a different side of the state. So what brings you to Western Massachusetts, or has piqued your curiosity about Western
I
Massachusetts?
just saw the resume, it looked interesting, looks like an interesting community, interesting involved here, and I had trouble figuring out I know you've got a peculiar chapter 70 situation, as was explained to me, type of thing, and that, but just, it seems, you're financially, you're middle of the road in terms, best as I could tell, you're financially fairly stable, so I won't have any big issues to finish up out there, and having been in a couple larger communities, I think there are certain things I could bring to a small community, given what I've, and I'm not afraid to have to get involved with other areas that would require me to, and as I pointed out, I definitely want a person that can back up in payroll, and if it's me, so be it, that's no problem with that at all. And this looks like a small, friendly town, really compelling. I think I'm very comfortable here, and I think that's something to contribute.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for
Well,
joining
thank you.
us.
Thank you.
And we will be making a decision this evening. And we will be in touch with you
Okay,
regardless.
okay. Well, good meeting you again.
Very nice to
Thank
meet
you.
you.
Thank you very much.
Safe travels.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So it is now time for us to discuss the candidates. And after we have our discussion, I will ask for a motion to appoint one of the candidates. Then we will do a roll call vote, and depending on the outcome of that vote, either make a motion to appoint another candidate, make a motion to repost, or decide to proceed with the original.
Is that all you do?
No, I'm kind of ad-libbing that one.
May I ask a question that I don't have the answer to on either of the candidates? At any point during any of the interview questions, did anybody ask them how long they intend to be working for?
So, no,
I don't know if we can do.
I don't,
I don't
yes,
think
I
you
don't
can do
think you
that.
can do
That's
that,
not
but I
my
think you can
line.
read between the lines.
Yeah,
In our last interview, our first interview,
yeah,
the candidate mentioned relocating.
right.
And then also, if I direct you to the references, there might be some information
Correct.
about that in some of the reference responses.
Right.
Well, the big thing is we have to make sure that we score. Not sure if you all did it question by question or after the initial interview.
Yes.
Yeah, so the score matters.
Oh, it does.
So Annie, do
So
you
how
want
we
us to
rate
tally
them.
up numbers, and do you want us to compare numbers? I mean, are we going by numbers here? How do you want us to do this?
You can certainly bring the numbers into the factory if you want to, yes, but I don't know that if everyone has those numbers ready or not, or you could just discuss the candidates.
I didn't do the numbers. Should I go back?
I didn't either, but now.
Well,
Yeah,
if-
should I go back and do the
You
numbers?
could do it one of two ways. I
For me,
mean,
there's a clear cut.
Yeah,
Just say I think one of the others.
well,
yeah.
it depends on, I rated as I went along,
Yep.
just so I would remember, and I'm a note taker, I can't read my own writing, but, there similarities with both candidates. Big differences. That makes sense.
I had Jen a different opinion. I think there were huge differences between the
Yeah.
candidates.
So I think a commonality is that they're both extremely competent.
Yep.
They both bring a wealth of experience.
You're right.
I think they
Right.
could both absolutely hit the ground running.
Yep.
So
The approach to the hitting the ground running is different.
I
yeah,
think question 3, they kind of both had the same ideology where they both wanted to get involved immediately to get to know not only the district, but the community, and then, kind of forge forward with a kind of a plan, which to me, they both sounded like, they're very similar. And, number 3 anyway.
I think.
Then the rest of it.
I think Peter's forte is absolutely in business management. And that when he spoke to doing his job so that Jen could do hers was kind of his philosophy. I think Clay has an extremely thorough understanding of all aspects of educational administration. And he also has a lot of experience in regional school districts, particularly those that have a similar makeup to our own.
And is more from this area.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly on that. I think the regional part of this is a huge, understanding, especially, and when I stepped out of line and asked that question about working with the Massachusetts School Building Authority, I have a lot of experience with that and passing referendums and, getting state money to build schools, and specifically in Southwick, we have a lot of elderly population here, and how do you deal with them?
They
And
don't
trying
have
to get a
stake in the-
referendum.
They don't have a stake in our
Right.
school system.
Right.
And I think that in this district, we're not undergoing a major building project
Right.
right now. It is certainly maintenance and upkeep and forward thinking.
Yep.
But I think in this district, it's really important to understand the 3 towns and the nature of 3 small towns, but one in which is a lion compared to the other 2. And the histories and understanding the workings of a regional school district. And I think that is a huge asset that Clay would bring to the table.
I mean, I agree. I think Clay kind of answered all of the questions. Yeah, he didn't really sway, whereas I felt Peter, he does talk fast and he didn't answer the questions completely. And then I think Clay at the end was able to kind of revert back to all of the questions in summary and give like a broader answer and kind of sell himself. One thing about Peter that I didn't care for was his working relationship with unions. He mentioned union being, he's very anti-union. Now, as a manager who manages a team of union personnel, I was in the union, I understand both sides. We're in a union environment here, teachers are union, maintenance are union everywhere. You have to have that relationship. And you can't, when he talked about the busing, and he should have not hired a union outfit because of the drinking and the drugs. Well, that was kind of like, all right. Didn't care for that.
That might not be the right answer for an interview.
No, and
Maybe.
look at, I mean, it's,
No, not right. Appropriate.
I've worked in Boston. I can see his understanding of the unions in Boston. They're tougher. They are. However, we're in a union environment here. We need to,
Right,
create a positive
right.
relationship and a work culture that,
And it goes back to-
everybody can meet in the middle.
Right, and it goes back to that small town regional school district, you know.
It does, yeah.
They, you know, Boston is
Boston
a
is
much
Boston,
different
yeah.
scenario. They have problems that we don't have. You know, they have a population of students that we don't have.
Right, exactly.
Not just in numbers, but in what they're facing when they go home and what they're bringing to school with them and what, you know, type of behavioral and, you know, socioeconomical and minority and all of those type of things. It's a completely different perspective when you're talking about Boston
Right.
and when you're talking about a small regional school.
Special education and bringing them back to the school movement, have the resources for that special child, that really does need to go out. And it
Yeah.
really should be about the child.
Right, right. It's not a moneymaker. Those are not moneymakers.
Right.
So another thing that I really did appreciate about Clay was that he kept going back to the emphasis that the budget needs to support the strategic plan.
Yeah.
And there was actually a question in which, you know, it was Erica's question, how do you incorporate financial information into the academic strategic planning? He was like, well, actually, no, it's the reverse.
Right.
You know, you start with the plan and then you make the budget fit that. So I really did appreciate that a lot. Another thing is, since I was part of both this round of interviews and the previous round of interviews, I was kind of looking for, okay, what are they bringing to the table this time around that's a little bit different
Right.
than the first time around? And I honestly felt that I was hearing the same thing, like even sometimes the same words and phrases from Peter this time as I heard from last time. I wasn't really hearing much new, and that he actually may have interviewed a bit better the first time around.
I thought he had
than
passion the
this-
first time around. I thought
Yes.
he brought a lot to the table.
Yes.
I think this time he kind of was a little too relaxed, a little too, you know, maybe comfy cozy.
I just didn't hear anything really.
Right,
new.
nothing new to, you're right, to sell himself, right?
Whereas I just had a better kind of feeling with more information being shared with us in Clay's second interview.
I like.
Yeah, I come
like-
from a different
Go ahead.
point of view here.
Go ahead, Fred.
I happen to like Peter better, because he's more of a finance person. That's what he came across, you know, he knows the ins and outs of budgets and then how to do it. And he's also been in the educational side, on the budget side. And as far as, what was the other thing I had? Yeah, he really hit, in other words, to me, he has the budget, in other words, we're bringing him in on the budget. And that's his number one priority. And he also sort of, you know, from my standpoint, you know, he did address, you know, how the budget hits in different areas and things of that nature and is important. Where the other guy,
Clay.
I'm not, he was more, the other thing I liked about Peter too, is he was being proactive on the budget.
Yes, I agree with you on that.
In other words, he's very proactive. And then he holds the budget number one.
Mhm.
You know, that, I keep forgetting the guy's name. Clay. He was more general and I got a feeling, you know, the budget wasn't exactly, you know, the top priority for him.
So I agree with you on that. Peter is a budget man. That's what he does. That's what he's always done. And he's always done it, almost always done it
That's
for
right.
school districts. He's always done it for larger school districts, not for regional school districts. But yes, I think he could learn the workings of a regional school district very quickly.
Well, he also was coming from a school where, I keep forgetting the guy's name.
Clay?
Clay.
Pete or Clay?
Clay wasn't, you know, all his, you know, he had a lot of his background was not in education
Well,
and not on the,
He said that, he said business.
you know, he's business, but that's one of the problems because business doesn't get along with the school.
I disagree.
I
Yeah.
disagree with that because he was in all aspects of education.
Right.
But you're right in terms of priorities with regard to from day one. So you're absolutely right about, Peter, his priority is the budget, having a firm understanding of this year's budget, and you're right, he is very future-minded in terms of projecting out as much as 5 years. Absolutely, completely agree with you on that one. Whereas Clay's initial priorities would be knowing the culture of the district and the 3 towns. And then establishing relationships in his finance team. So you're absolutely right, they do have different approaches with regard to day one priorities. I agree with you on that, and I do agree that, Peter's background is 100% in school business administration, whereas Clay comes to it with a variety of different, both business and educational background.
What is the title? It's not business manager anymore. I think it's assistant superintendent, correct?
Amy, what is the official
Finance?
title that we're hiring here?
Director of Finance and Operations.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
that's business. I mean, that's not, it's.
Well, operations and finance are really two different things. I mean, you control a workforce that, handles buildings and grounds and, the cafeteria and
And that all
the
comes under-
janitorial side. I get the budgets are one thing that feed into, academics and, but you're really controlling.
Includes operations.
You could split the pie in half. You have to know both, and I felt Clay running Westover Job Corps and coming from Frontier or, Union 38 and I forget where else he said he's from, Mohawk.
Mohawk
think he's-
Frontier.
He has the background and experience and he gets the lingo. He
Right.
understands like kind of the maybe relationships between the staff in the central office and the teachers and then the, outside administration. I don't know, I felt like he had just a better understanding of,
And this
All
position
aspects.
isn't just gonna be about the budget. It's also about contracts and how do you go about those contracts? And, I'm in sales and I'm only using this as an explanation as to what I'm trying to get to, and that's totally business. But I have to know contracts and I'm not great with numbers, but if I were gonna ever move into a public position, it would be the director of business. Because that's what he does, and what would come underneath my, repartee, it would be the contract, the budget. And so I think you have to have an understanding of all of the different aspects of business in order to fill this position. I don't think it can be just the budget. I think it has to be each piece of that, and
That's where I disagree with you, because in the, when you come to the town meetings.
Yeah.
It's the budget. They don't look at it as,
you mean like the different towns, yeah,
all 3 towns.
yeah.
It's the budget. You go to a town, when you sit in a town meeting, we're discussing the school. It's the budget. It's not anything else. It's the budget. And that is the biggest thing that you can stumble over in this district.
I think that we need to make sure that the person in this position could, in front of town meeting, clearly explain the rationale behind the budget in a way that puts the townspeople at ease, and they understand. I mean, it's an enormous amount of money, and nobody wants, to pay this kind of money, but, to understand why the school district needs that kind of money and how it supports our district strategic plan. And I do think that's important. I do think they could both do a good job of that. And I think that we just need to think about, who we feel, could do that best in front of town meeting, but also for us here at the table as we go through budget season. And then who could best serve as the director of operations to all of the many different people that would fall under their purview. And I do believe that either candidate could do a good job. But we do have to pick one. So before I make a motion to, or ask for a motion to appoint, is there anything in this discussion that we've kind of left out that we want to bring up?
Not from me.
I'd like to make a motion.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Being a part of the strategic plan for the town and taking in, into account that information that you understand from being on that board or what have you, which one of these clients would fit better taken in that information?
Oh, that's actually a tough question. Hard to say because that was something that we didn't consider in, the questions maybe.
Right.
However, I mean, so I could say the strategic plan really is focused on, the continuing of, having a safe environment for the students, education is number one, and then, thinking of ways to reduce costs with, solar, stuff like that, but I think really anybody can manage that.
Yeah. No, I mean, as far as the schools are considered for the town, for the master plan, would one of these, with their ideologies and from what little, I've heard from them, would either of these, would it have any bearing on who you would choose out of these two?
I don't think.
I don't think so, because,
Yeah.
for instance, Town of Tallinn doesn't have a strategic plan. I could care less. Granville, they have other, they have their strategic plan.
Granville is being included. Not necessarily all of Granville, but some of Granville is being included in this, so it affects Southwick as a whole. I mean, you shop at Big Y, it affects you all regardless, so. I don't see a gas station in Tallinn.
No,
Share a school district.
that's what I mean. It's, Tallinn, we've got our own issues. And,
It's all
and
the
the
same,
biggest,
that's
no,
really
the biggest issue in Tallinn, in town meetings, and anytime there's a group, and the same is partially true in in Granville, it's the school. It's the school budget. And both towns watch Southwick very, like hawk.
Mhm.
And if you guys sneeze and we decide we didn't like the way you sneezed, all hell breaks loose. And
Back to this.
I'm serious.
I'm sure you are. Let's pick someone.
I'm sorry, I
We
didn't
need
mean to
to
laugh.
we
I
need to pick a
just-
candidate.
All right,
Yeah,
so
before
I
we keep
will,
talking,
I will ask for a motion to appoint one of the candidates to the position of Director of Finance and Operations.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Clayton Connor.
A second.
Okay. So I will now take a roll call vote.
Take it out.
So I'm gonna call each individual, and ask them to verbally state their vote. And this would be a motion to appoint Clayton Connor, to the position of Director and of Finance and Operations.
So yes or no question?
It is a yes or no. Ryan,
Yes.
Pat,
Patrick Jubb, yes.
No,
Ted, Erica,
Yes.
and I am a yes. So that, let the record show that that was 4 yeses and 1 no. Right? Which is fine. And so that vote passes. Sounds good. All right, so yes, so I do need to accept a motion to go into executive session now, to conduct strategy sessions
So
in
moved.
preparation for negotiations, with non-union personnel. Or contract negotiations with non-union personnel and not return to open session.
I will make a motion.
Second,
All right, Ryan,
yes.
Pat,
Yes.
Ted,
Yes.
Erica,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So motion passes 5-0-0.
That's my daughter. Let me check.
Hold on, just one.